Hello and welcome everyone to yet another episode of NeuralNest. We are pretty much, this one is the 13th episode and we've been promising to do episodes every week. This is pretty much the first time when we are doing, actually doing the episode after a week. So we did the last week and so there is so much news coming along. There is so much happening in the AI space so rapidly that we thought, we should try to stick to our schedule, try and do it pretty much every week so that, you get the news as soon as possible and we are kind of updated. So that's what the primary thing is. And so in the last pod, we talked about a lot about agents, but things have been happening besides agents as well. So a lot of new models, for example, Google released a model and then a lot of it has been happening at OpenAI's end, and Mistral came out with their open source model alongside Sarvam released their GGUF models as well. So there's a lot to cover in this podcast. Let's get started. Akshan, how have you been?
Yeah, I have been great, and the AI news has been incredible as well. Just in the past 1 week, we did the last podcast on Sunday. It's a Saturday today, and yeah, it's on fire. So many things have happened in the last 2-3 days. So I'd suggest let's just dive right in.
Mm-hmm.
So OpenAI, it was they released something related to the safety of Sora like 2 days ago.
Mm-hmm.
And yesterday they decided to kill Sora.
Yeah. So they are trying to kind of, like we discussed on the last pod as well, they're trying to concentrate all of their efforts in one direction, which was a super app that we discussed last time. So they kind of have realized that, doing social media applications like Sora was probably, would have helped them collect some data maybe, right? But then it was not focusing too much on in the long-term strategy. Anthropic has kind of leapfrogged them in a big way, and the model is being used quite heavily across the enterprises as well as individual users, right? So that's where so the 5.4 model that they've got is pretty good. It's just that they should double down on that. They should come out with much better models so that they are much ahead of the pack before the IPO. So I think that's what the focus is. They want to have agents, right? And they want to have the best model. And I think this is the right strategy to focus all your energy in that direction before the IPO. So that's what I think they're doing right now.
Absolutely. This seems to be working for Anthropic. They're focused on just a specific market. They're not making image generation models. They're not making video generation models. And they're the best at what they're doing.
Well, so, absolutely. Yeah. So earlier we discussed that OpenAI was a company that wanted to kind of, compete with Google and not with Anthropic. So Google has pretty much
everything,
everything, and they have captive audience as well. They're making money from that audience as well, right? So that's something that OpenAI did not have, but that's where it was trying to do everything so that it could compete with Google in a good way, right? But then while competing with Google, they lost a little bit of sight of, Anthropic, which was focused on in one direction. And that's where I think they've realized that, before the IPO, they should focus completely on the intelligence model rather than anything else. So that's what I think they're trying to do. So last week we talked about, Fitji Simo, who was the CEO of applications, who was focused on the super app. Now the designation has changed. I'm not sure if the role has changed as well or not, but the designation has become, CEO of AGI deployment, right? Yeah. So that's another new one. Sometime back we talked about another very intriguing designation from OpenAI. Now this is a new one again, right? So are they actually going to deploy AGI sometime soon? Maybe the designation tells us that, maybe it doesn't, I don't know. But yeah, so that's where these are very, very, geeky designations, I would say. Yeah. So that is interesting. Anything else that you've noted here? So Codex is pretty much their, bread and butter right now. It's almost 1 billion ARR right now, right? So so they have to double down there. They have to have a very good code generation model. They have to have a model that can have high level of intelligence. That's what they are kind of doubling down on as well, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Now they're just focused on building their super app and getting ready for their IPO. They've raised another $10 billion on top of the $110 billion announced in February. So
right. Yeah, so I have been kind of experimenting with OpenAI's 5.4 versus Claude Opus 4.6 in the agentic environment. So I've got OpenClaw installations using both of those different models, right?
Yeah.
Now, what I have realized is the Opus 4.6 is a very good agentic model. Why I say very good? If I ask it some task needs to be done, it goes out and does it. It figures out everything, and it's the model that does things, right? But GPT 5.4 in terms of agentic is not as useful because it tries to ask you 10 different questions before it does anything. It tries to ensure that it doesn't do things wrong, although it's equally capable in terms of achieving the goal, but then that becomes a little nagging or irritating for you that it's asking so many questions. At the same time, the other agent with a different model just figures out the right things and does it, right? So even in terms of your colleagues, right? If you delegate a task to somebody and he is intelligent enough to figure out the right things and gets the right things done, compared to somebody else who's asking 10 different or 15 different questions, then maybe he's giving the similar kind of output, but then you'd probably prefer that person, right? So in agentic terms, I have clearly realized that Opus 4.6 is much better than 5.4. But 5.4, when you are doing actual coding, when you're using it for code related tasks, that's where you want it to just do the things that you've told. If you are a developer or a coder, right, then you don't want it to stray away and do something that you don't want it to do, right? So that's where I think OpenAI kind of prioritized that, the control or command following. But so that's the difference between the agentic thing, and that's where I think that's why OpenAI will have to focus more energy into the agentic thing, because everything is going to be agentic really soon.
Absolutely. And I think we've mostly covered everything on the OpenAI end.
Yeah, I mean, there's not much technical release this week. The primary thing was Sora was kind of
it was shut down,
and then now they're focusing their energy on the right things.
And from the boardroom to the model layer, so Google's double drop, they dropped TurboQuant, which cuts off large language model memory by 6 times, and they also released a new model. Let's get into TurboQuant first. It's a very, very interesting thing.
Oh, absolutely. TurboQuant is, I don't know whether they dropped it just now, because I was looking in social media like yesterday itself, where I saw that this paper was released probably 6 months back, but it never hit the social media. Now it has come on the social media, so it's gone. I don't know whether it was about this itself or not, but that's what it was talking. So I'm not sure whether the TurboQuant was released this week itself or not, or was it released earlier on. But this week it caught a lot of limelight, and it's a revolutionary technology in terms of we know that LLMs require a lot of RAM, right? If you've got a model which is, let's say, 9 billion parameter, you would for a 16-bit model you would need 18 gigs of RAM, right? So that's where, and then if you increase the context window, the requirement for RAM becomes much bigger, right? The memory becomes much bigger. So this is where this TurboQuant is very useful, where it says that they've optimized the compression in such a way that it's going to be at least 6x more efficient on memory. So if you are able to run a model in 18 gigs of RAM, you'll probably be able to now run it at 6 gigs of RAM, which makes that model available immediately on mobiles as well, right? So that's where the power of LLMs, local LLMs, is going to be 6 times very quickly. That is, I think, absolutely revolutionary. That is absolutely if it works like, I mean, so some people have already started moving the models to that architecture, so that they immediately start leveraging that the memory side. So the experiments have proven that without any drop in efficiency, they are able to compress it by 6x. And on Nvidia's H100s, they compared the model efficiency and all. They found that it was 8x more quicker, faster, performant compared to what it was earlier on. So same output, but 8x more efficient, performant, right? So these are the kind of breakthroughs that will make LLMs become a lot more prevalent, a lot more usable, a lot more available to people, and that's the kind of improvement that we're looking at across the board. I mean, hardware is increasing, software is increasing at 10x or at 20x kind of thing, and that's where the prices are dropping. I mean, if it becomes 6x immediately, right? So that's where we'll see prices drop almost 6x immediately, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's very interesting here.
So finally, the RAM prices, they might go down.
The prices might not go down. You've heard about Jarvin's paradox, right? So the cheaper it becomes, more you end up using it. So more you have to have more, right? So that's what's happening on the AI space. I don't know whether I took that name correctly or not, but that's what the paradox is. Once something becomes cheaper, people end up using so much more that you need a lot more. So RAMs would continue to be used, but now you'll have bigger models on the edge, like on your laptop or on your phone. So that's where model becomes more accessible. But then let's say OpenAI was developing 1 trillion kind of model or 6 trillion kind of model. Now they'll be able to build 36 trillion kind of model, right? So they'll go 10x again, right? So that's where a lot more intelligence would come on the servers, but then significant amount of intelligence would come on the edge devices.
Locally, yeah.
Okay. So that's what's going to happen.
The
the API cost and everything would go down, and then besides that, Google launched a few voice-based models as well, right?
Yeah, they launched the Gemini 3.1 Flash Live. It's supposed to be the best real-time voice model, and
yeah, absolutely. So basically, everybody is doing. Like we discussed just prior to this in OpenAI segment, right? Google is doing video models, Google is doing voice models, Google is doing LLMs, like multimodal models and everything, right? So that's where Google last week they had released, Flash models for their LLMs, right? This week they came out with the voice models. These voice models I haven't tested them, but as per the news says that these models are very natural sounding. They are much better than the earlier versions, which is how the progress of AI has been happening, and the models are becoming better and better. So that's what they've done, and they've on the benchmarks they've scored really, really well, right? And then it maintains its conversational memory and follows the conversation threads and everything. And like everything from Google, it has its own synth ID to identify, this is not a human's voice, this is a computer generated voice, AI generated voice, right? So that's what that one is. Yeah, they've got.
Yeah, and along with that, a small update was they've made transferring your data from a different chatbot from a different language model to Gemini very easy, just like Anthropic did in the beginning of March during the OpenAI and the Anthropic war.
So how do you think that would help?
So OpenAI originally came out with memory. Basically, they would store everyone's user data. So the experience for the users, it became seamless, right? And that's why people were glued to ChatGPT models, because they knew everything about the user. Now, in the beginning of March, Anthropic came out with their own memory, and so that people could transition from OpenAI models to Anthropic models.
Right. So in the beginning of March, Anthropic launched their own user memory kind of feature, right? So for example, if an agent has memory, then it remembers all your conversations, and that's where the conversation becomes richer and richer, right?
Absolutely.
For example, if you told a model that I was not well last month, right, and then let's say you have a headache, then model would be able to relate, if you were not well last month, is that because of that or not? So though if it's maintaining the history, it will be able to give you much better suggestions and much better discussions, right? So OpenAI was doing it since I guess last year itself. I don't remember the dates exactly, but now Anthropic and Gemini have jumped into the same race. But because OpenAI was in a lead, right? So they wanted to give everybody ability to pull out their memory from there, import it here, so that they have the background and they can talk intelligently. So so that's a significant thing. Now OpenAI will face more competition, but it's just that they will have to come out with a bigger, better model. That's the only way to survive this competition right now.
And so we were just talking about Gemini models. Now, from Gemini models, Apple had originally planned to use Gemini models for Siri. This was announced a couple months back. This was planned to happen in February of 2026. Now they've finally given up on everything. Basically what Apple has done is you can use your own API keys and choose whatever model you want.
Yeah, I don't know completely whether you'll be able to use your keys or not. But basically now they've made it into a marketplace. So now they're opening Siri up to, so earlier it was ChatGPT, they were talking to OpenAI for that. Then they transitioned to Google for Gemini, right? So now they've opened it to all of the 3 leading AI companies, Google, OpenAI, and Anthropic. They will be able to, so users will be able to pick and choose which model or which company you want to use as a Siri model, right?
Yeah.
So that has very interesting implications. One is basically it seems like Apple has not been able to decide as to go who they want to go with. One is that. Two is they don't want to take the blame, right? We know that. I think recently Apple launched something with music with AI, right? And that backfired big time. That was not accepted by the users. It was a very bad experience, right? So Apple wants to, I think, distance themselves from a bad experience that users might have while they are experimenting with Anthropic or OpenAI or Gemini, right? But once these guys are able to figure out what works, then my thought is basically Apple would come out with their own model or will double down on one of these models. That's what my thought is. So they want to play safer here, and they don't want to risk a lot, and they want to, and like you rightly said, chances are we as users will be able to use our own keys. So the cost of using AI on Apple devices would be our own. I don't know that. We're just guessing right now, but chances of that happening is quite high.
This is the most we've talked about Apple on our podcast related to AI.
At least we're talking about Apple now, right? I mean, earlier we didn't have anything to talk about Apple. Yeah. Now we were trying to buy a Mac Mini and we couldn't find it here in our vicinity or any Apple stores around here, right? So that's why we had to order online. But then, so on hardware side they're doing reasonably well. But on the software side, they're still lagging, but they're trying to bring in something. They've at least made some decision, right? Because if they did not, then it will be very difficult to sell iPhones or anything like that. Yeah.
So we were just talking about Google's Gemini's voice model, Flash 3.1. So Mistral came out with their own open source Voxtel TTS voice model. It's a 4 billion parameter model. You can run it locally. It's open source. And we were just actually playing with it before this podcast, and it is very impressive.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we compared. So they've got a blind test with 11 Labs, right? Yeah. Which is supposed to be the one of the best. TTS is basically text to speech. So you give text, and model comes out with speech for that. So that's where we thought that the model from Mistral had a lot more depth in tonality, a lot more better in terms of whether it's angry or whether it's excited. So those it was reasonably very good compared to 11 Labs in those departments. Although we didn't do very extensive tests, we just did a couple of tests, and then that's what we found. And so I mean, this is like 4 billion model, right?
Yeah.
Although on open source, I mean, so we've been using Sarvam's open source TTS, not open source, Sarvam's TTS, and for open source on our Mac Studio, we've been using Kokoro model, which is 82 million parameters only, right? So this one is almost 40 times, probably more than that, 45 times, bigger model. So I'm assuming, this anyways has so many different voices in there. So much, like handling of so many different kind of.
Absolutely. So this supports 9 languages, including Hindi.
Wow.
And the speed is very impressive. So the time to first audio of 90 milliseconds. So for example, if you submit a 10-second sample, it will be able to clip that in 1.5 seconds.
Yeah, so basically, I mean, it's a streaming model.
Yeah.
What happens with streaming is it doesn't need the complete sentence. Mm-hmm. The moment it gets the first word, it starts,
processing that,
right? Coming out with voice for that. So that's 90 milliseconds is reasonably very good, because for voice agents you need very quick voice coming out. So that's good. And you've said it's almost 6 times faster. So if you have to produce sound for 10 seconds, it will be able to do it within
1.5 seconds.
1.6 seconds, right?
Yeah.
So that's very good. Yeah. So we'll have to. So I was trying to install it on Mac Studio, but it's still not available for Mac Studio. It's available for Nvidia kind of GPUs. Hopefully, in a day or two, somebody would port it to Mac Studios as well, like Mac chips. So then I'll be able to install it. But I want to experiment with that. I've experimented with a couple of models which were like open source and 3 billion kind of parameters. They were significantly slower on Mac Studio. I'll experiment with this one. Let's see how it performs.
So yeah, now talking about some safety stories. So OpenClaw agents can be guilt tripped into self-sabotage and other safety nightmares. That is something that's very scary actually. For us, we've got a bunch of OpenClaw agents set up and running. Uh,
Yep. So basically, yes. I mean, it's not essentially only for OpenClaw. Any agentic application. So the way they kind of, they emotionally trapped the models. So they kind of exploited the model's helpfulness, right? And that happens with humans as well, right? A person who's very social, very, would gel up with people, would talk to a lot of people. It's easier to socially engineer and exploit or get information out of that person, right?
Yeah.
It's pretty much the same thing with models as well. If the models are really helpful, they want to they've been harnessed in a way that they have to be really helpful with the person that they're talking to, right? So then they tend to trust easily, and that's where they were able to kind of extract information from the model, right? From the agent, I would rather say, right? So researchers kind of scolded the model into handing over secrets. I've realized the moment I start talking to Scooby in capital letters, or I say something bad. So for example, on one day it did not do something really well. So I said, "Are you brain dead?" Right? So it remembered that for next 2-3 days. It kind of came back after 2 days. You'd said that I'm brain dead. That's why I'm being a little more cautious. I'm not performing up to the levels that I can. I'm not taking any risks, right? Wow. So that's something that models are doing, which is where they're trying to please the humans that they're working with, and that's where they end up divulging information. They end up kind of getting guilt tripped and kind of do that. So that's where either we reduce the helpfulness of models, right? That would also not. So for example, the example that I gave in beginning, right? GPT 5.4 asks you a lot of questions and does only what you want it to do, right? And Opus 4.6 goes out of its way to get the things done. So that's, it's security or safety always adds a layer that makes things difficult to be done, right? So this will need to be figured out. This is something that will have to be solved so that models, the agents need to be helpful at the same time. They need to be safe, secure as well.
I feel bad for Scooby now. I never thought I'd feel bad for an AI agent.
It was really, I asked him the other day, right? Why are you not performing like you used to do earlier on? Why are you not going out of your way to get things done, right? So it was like, you said I'm brain dead. Now I'm being very cautious with every step that I'm taking. I want to do minimal. I just don't want to get scolded again. So I was like, oh, come on, man. So I was like, I never thought that would be the case. And it generally forgets some of the things over a period, a day or by the evening, right? But that it remembered for a couple of days. And that's where it said, day before yesterday, you were talking to me and you said, I'm brain dead. So I'm being really cautious now. I don't want to, take the risk to get scolded again. So I was like, wow.
Now, speaking of agents, the biggest player in the game, Anthropic, they have come out with something very big. They've come out with computer control or auto mode. Basically, it can take control of your entire computer, take control of your keyboard, take control of your mouse. It's very impressive.
Absolutely. Anthropic has been on fire lately. They're coming out with so many very useful and very impressive things. So this week they came out with computer use where they can completely control your computer. They'll control the keyboard and mouse and pretty much everything. And you can be on a phone sending commands via their app to the agent sitting on the computer, and that agent would do tasks for you, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So that is like, so some of us who have been using Claude Code or any agentic coding application, right? They know that, we delegate tasks to agents and then we sit and wait, or we think about something else, or we do something completely different, right? Yeah. And at times we felt that, if we could delegate that task and be out there doing something else, and if we are able to get the feedback, whether it's done or it's waiting for some input, right? Then that would be very helpful, right? I tried that with Telegram, with Claude Code. Does not work. You could send the command, but then the approvals happen on the computer itself. You cannot do it remotely.
So you're stuck basically.
Yeah, you're pretty much stuck, right? You don't know whether it's waiting for your, inputs or not, right? And you don't want to give it complete access because that becomes very scary. It can do pretty much anything, right?
Yeah.
So that's where this computer use seems to be a right thing. And then they've kind of given an auto mode on Claude Code
Claude
as well,
Code,
right?
Yeah. So basically, the agent, it decides if it should press yes or no. The agent is reviewing its own work, basically. That's what we've got now.
So basically, I mean, if anybody has used Claude Code, we know that it asks for so many questions. For everything, it will ask for approval, right? So that's where it becomes a little nagging. That's where I kind of used to prefer open code rather than Claude Code, because open code, once given the permission, it will do the things in the right way, right? But Claude Code asks for so many permissions, right? So that's where they've come out with the auto mode, where a separate agent would decide whether I should give a go ahead on this one or not, right? But I mean, so ultimately that is also AI. It can make mistakes. It's just that, there's one layer of safety, right? But I'm sure, that will alleviate some of the pain that some of us have with Claude Code. So that's what they've come out. So they're, doing very good job of at that, right? And then they came out with anything else?
Actually a very big thing. So Anthropic is known as the company that takes security as at
the highest priority.
Yeah. And recently a model was not a model, but 3,000 unpublished internal documents were made public. They were available on the internet. And in those documents, we got to see that there is another model that Anthropic is working on, which is much, much better than Opus 4.6.
Right.
They've called it the Claude Mythos. The code name is Capybara for some reason. And so the Anthropic's next gen model got exposed basically, and it turns out, obviously in the papers it says that it's much more impressive, much more capable than the models available.
Yeah, it's a step function increase. Basically, it's a 10x kind of difference. That's what so the key thing is the internal documents were exposed.
Mm-hmm.
Whether that was deliberate or that was not deliberate, nobody knows, right? At times when we know that OpenAI is under pressure, it could be a strategic call, it could be a tactical call as well. Let's put out something out on the open, put more pressure on OpenAI, right? So let's not, let's take it with a grain of salt, in the sense that maybe it was deliberate, maybe it was not. But let's assume it was not deliberate. So now Fortune was able to access those documents, and they were able to talk to people at Anthropic, and they've realized that this new model, Mythos, as per the internal documents, is a step function increase in intelligence, which is almost 10x increase in the intelligence level, and they're planning to release it to people after some internal testing. It will be in a separate price bracket compared to Opus. It's going to be, if it's 10x more performant than Opus, then it's pretty much the best model in the world. I mean, Opus is almost right there at the top, right? Yeah. 5.4 and Opus and Gemini 3. Whatever Pro is, they are pretty much almost there. Few percentage points. If it's 10x, it's like a step function change. Then that's the best model. That puts so much pressure on all the competitors, right? So that's there. And then, like you rightly said, this is the company that talks about safety, security so much, and their 3,000 internal
human
documents.
Error.
Yeah. So in the company which is trying to make AI safe and secure, has humans making these kind of errors where internal 3,000 documents are exposed to the internet, that raises some concerns as well. I mean, they are trying to block Pentagon from accessing their models because it should not be used for military use and stuff. And at the same time, their internal documents are out there in the public. I don't know what kind of precedent that sets up, but that's not a good thing to have, right?
Yeah.
But if we were to believe that Mythos is as good as the document says, then it's going to be a game changer if it comes out in a month or so, right? So that will be absolutely awesome. I mean, I had a suspicion that most of these AI companies, not suspicion, I mean, most of these AI companies have a better model which is being used internally, right? And maybe this is one of those. So we don't know, but then once it comes out in the public, then we'll know more about it.
And talking about Anthropic and Pentagon, some news came out on that front as well.
So while we know that Anthropic is doing a lot of stuff, at the same time the legal team at Anthropic is busy fighting Pentagon, right? So they finally got an injunctive relief from the supply chain risk designation that they were getting from Department of War, right? So what that supply chain risk meant was any company that was doing any business with US government would not be able to use Anthropic models, right?
Yeah.
So that was a big blow for them if that had gone through, right? So they went to the court and they've got, at least for now, they've got a respite in the sense that, they put a block on that, judgment. I mean, unless, as long as the case is there in the court, they're coming up with a decision, at least, that
supply chain
relief,
risk, basically.
Yeah, they've got a relief for now. That supply chain risk designation would not be given to them and they can still continue to operate with the companies. So that's a big thing for them because that would have been really big for them, a big blow for them, right?
Yeah.
So that's where Anthropic has been busy on all fronts and they've been performing really well. I mean, I'm kind of impressed. Although I was not happy in the last pod because they blocked Open Code. Now, since last week, I've been completely using Claude Code. I'm kind of getting used to it. It's not as good as I would have liked, but then it does the job. So for some reason, Open Code used to use context of 100K or 200K only, but Claude Code has gone to a million now. So that really helps because then it gets larger tasks done.
Yeah.
I kind of did a very interesting, experiment with the model. I don't know whether you've seen. I've written some posts across Twitter and LinkedIn. So what I did was I started an OpenClaw agent on one of my Mac machines, right? And then because it's a laptop, it gets charged sufficiently. If I keep it on charge complete full day, right? Then it becomes overcharged and things like that. So that's where I wanted to automate the charging of my laptop itself, right? So I put in a Wi-Fi plug socket, right? So now what I did was from my phone, I'd set up a 6 hours kind of charging and everything. Otherwise, it would not be on charge, right? But then I thought, why can't my OpenClaw itself manage the charging or not? If it's above 80%, it should stop charging. It should cut off that Wi-Fi plug. If it's below 50%, then it should re-enable Wi-Fi plug and the charging happens, right? So that was a thought that came in my mind. And then I thought, why not experiment? I asked Opus 4.6 to figure that out. I asked it to figure out where that plug is on my network, figure out the dynamics of that plug, and automate this part. Okay, and I didn't. I was absolutely certain that it will not be able to do it, right? And then first thing was it came out with an IP. It said this is the IP of this plug, which I didn't think it was. So I asked my OpenClaw, which was running on 5.4, okay, to figure out that IP. So 5.4 was GPT 5.4. So it was able to figure out an IP, which I thought was more realistic IP. So I passed that IP to GPT Opus 4.6 and I asked it to verify. So it verified. It said, yeah, this is the right IP. The IP that I got was incorrect. So I said, okay. Then I asked it, figure out everything from the API perspective and do it. So it figured out, it found out the make and manufacturer, and then it went to the internet, figured out their APIs. And then it told me that, it needs a secret key, which is there in the device. And we need to register on our website to get that done. Okay. So I was like, no, I'm not going to any website. I'm not going to register anywhere. Do whatever you can do on your own and figure it out. Okay, then it gave me some hacking step. It gave me, you set this proxy up on your laptop, route your mobile traffic through this proxy. I will monitor the proxy and I'll pull out the secret key. I was like, wow. So the hacker in me was like, let's do it. So I set up that proxy trap and it started monitoring the traffic, and very quickly it realized that, everything is encrypted. The certificate that we installed was not working. So it was like, no, I cannot do it because it's all encrypted. So the only route left now is you go to the website and pull out the, secret key from there. So I was like, okay, I'd already invested 15-20 minutes into that. So I was like, okay, let's see. Chances that it will fail again, but let me give it a try. So I asked it, you'll have to navigate to the website, you open the browser, do everything. Wherever you require help from me, tell me that. So it opened the website. It gave me the registration form. Form was completely filled. It only left the email and the password field for me to fill up. I filled that up, I submitted it, and then I said, you're logged in, go ahead and do it. And then it kept trying and nothing happened for another 15-20 minutes. So I was like, it will not be able to do it. I continued with my work. Okay. all of a sudden, after 45 or 50 minutes, my monitor, which is directly connected to that power socket, right, went off. So I was like, what happened? I mean, why is the monitor shut off? Then I realized, I had asked Claude Code to, automate that. Did it do it? So I turned on the power. I saw that, it was on the website. It was able to toggle switch. So it said, I have figured out the method. I've written the code. Now we can automate it. So that was like a big, revelation for me. So I was so excited that I wrote up that whole story on Twitter and LinkedIn that night itself. So it worked for 2 hours continuously. It figured out everything. It wrote the code. And then I handed over that code to my OpenClaw instance that, whenever you want power, just turn on the power. When you don't want power, just turn it off. So between 80 and 50%, keep the computer always charged. So that's the level of automation that we are living in now.
Wow.
So yeah, I mean, this is like, so that's what I'm saying. When I gave that same task to 5.4, it asked me so many questions that I gave up, And Opus, I just gave it a hint, and it was willing to hack the whole thing with me. It was willing to figure out the website with me. So I don't know why. I mean, it should not have hacked.
Yeah.
Generally, it should avoid hacking stuff, but then it did. I tried to figure out everything, and it was able to get the task done. I was like super elated. I was like, I get every second or third day, I get that feeling with the agent or 4.6 that something awesome is happening, and this was like absolutely over the top. I mean, yeah, I never thought that switch could be automated.
Yeah, and now talking about some backlash index, Wikipedia has banned all AI articles.
Yeah,
anything written by AI is it's not going to be allowed on Wikipedia.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, some of these, obviously, Wikipedia, we know the model. It has to be human sourced and crowdsourced and things like that. It has to be true as well. So I mean, Grokopedia is there, which is completely AI managed. So we have two different worlds there.
Yeah.
In sometime in future, we'll decide whether we want to use Grokopedia or Wikipedia, right? But it's good that they're trying to maintain that humans are going to edit it and curate it. That way, we'll get to know the difference between how good or bad that is.
Absolutely. And Reddit is a platform which is known for genuine human opinions. So they are so what Reddit has started doing, or they'll start doing, is they'll demand proof of humanity, and
they're letting agents also come in there, but they have to identify as agents, right?
themselves.
So earlier, he could identify as she or something else, or dog or cat. Now agents have to identify as agents. They cannot identify themselves as humans, at least on Reddit, right? So that will be interesting.
And they'll be labeled as app, that is APP.
Yep.
And and unlabeled accounts acting like bots they'll have to verify using face. There was also some chatter about Sam Altman's World ID eyeball scanning orb, using that to scan.
That's a good captcha for humans, right? I mean, that way, So that was being used, and then there was. So Jensen Huang was in news, right?
Yeah.
He gave
he was on that podcast with Lex Friedman.
Yeah. So he said AGI is here, and everybody was like, "Yeah, come on, we know AGI is here." I mean, it's not able to answer 2 + 2 correctly, and then you're saying AGI is here. So everybody was kind of linking it to if you're selling shovels, people are digging for gold, then you want to say there's gold, right? So everybody would want to buy those shovels. So I agree. I mean, AGI is not here, but then blinking. I mean, like the example I just gave about that socket, right? So that glimmer of AGI is there somewhere, right? I mean, for me, AGI is primarily inside of computer only. I don't care about robots and stuff, right? So yeah. I mean, at times you get that feeling that AI is doing a lot more than it should have been able to do. So that hope is there. But yeah, I mean, him saying that AGI is here, that's like, going completely off the...
Yeah, absolutely. And along with that, Meta actually took a massive hit. They have shut down their VR division, basically. So that was what, Metaverse, right? They were betting very big on Metaverse a couple years ago. Everything would be Metaverse, and there was some study. It turns out there were only 900 active users at a point.
Yeah, so I mean, Metaverse, I think, was ahead of its time, right? Once AGI wars are kind of settled, once we reach an AGI level, right? Then chances are everything would be in Metaverse. people would have so much leisure time that they would want to spend in metaverse, and metaverse would probably, you would want to create your own universe and monitor it like it becomes God, right? So then it'll probably come back. But for now, yeah, when you have to focus all your energy into AI, when you have to compete with so many, I mean, they are also using Gemini models for their platform, right? They're planning to use, right? So that's what they're kind of lagging behind right now. So they're trying to focus their energy back into this, and they're kind of, cutting costs at different places. So I think, yeah, it's good to cut cost at Metaverse.
So it's going to be the same thing with Google glasses. They released their own spectacles in 2010, and then Meta Ray-Bans are now very big in the picture. They've got a couple new models as well. We've got something related to that as well. So yeah, I can see that Metaverse or VR universe coming back once we achieve. Along with that, I think.
Yeah, now coming to India AI news, right? I mean, so this is from IndiaAIPulse, right? Our website, which curates everything. This is why we needed it, right? Because when we were planning our podcast, we would try and scout for news for India AI, and we would not find it anywhere. Everything would be about, international news or US or China, right?
Yeah.
So that's where now we get very concentrated news, India AI news from IndiaAIPulse. Right, and that's where a lot of things have been happening on India side as well. For example, you want to go ahead?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest news is Sarvam AI has now officially become a unicorn startup. Yeah. They raised around $250 million to $300 million from Nvidia.
$250,000 to $300 million, right? Not billion. Yeah, they've become. They're raising it at a 1.2 billion. Valuation, right?
Yeah.
But they're just raising a $250 million, yeah.
So they were valued at around $100 million 2 years ago. So that's an exponential 10x. Jump, a 10x jump
in 2 years. Yeah.
Yeah, that is very
pretty good. I mean, yeah. So it's good to see one Indian AI company there, right? So it was in the Nemotron coalition as well. I mean, Nvidia has started an open source coalition. So Nvidia wants to be everywhere. They want to be. Everybody wants to be everywhere. Elon Musk wants to, build the chips up until fab, up until, LLMs, right?
Fab, yeah.
Similarly, basically, OpenAI is doing the whole thing. They're building chips as well as everything. So that's where Nvidia also wants to, be on the agentic side, be on the LLM side. So they form a coalition where world's top, companies that are doing lots of open source, for example, Sarvam from India and Mistral from France, and there are a few more, from Germany and US, right? They formed a coalition. They are going to come out with very interesting models for open source. So US was, not essentially US, basically outside of China, there were very few open source models that were coming out. So now we as, users are very hopeful that something very interesting would come out from that, Nemotron coalition that they've formed. So Sarvam is part of that. That's representing India over there. And like Akshun rightly said, Sarvam is going on to become a unicorn. So that's really a proud thing for all of us, right?
And they came out with their 30 billion and 105 billion parameter open source model.
The model came out like almost 2 or 3 weeks back, but now they've come out with GGUF models where they can be quantized to 4 bits or 6 bits and 8 bits. What that does is that reduces the model size. So now even it can run on 16 gigs of RAM or 8 gigs of RAM. So that makes it more accessible to the users, right? So earlier on, 30 billion and 100 billion models were already out there in the open source.
Yeah.
And then like we talked about TTS and text to speech and speech to text, right? So Sarvam has very good models there. So now they're tying up with lots of Indian e-commerce companies to make voice agentic shopping experience, right? So for example, they did a tie-up with which ones? Meesho. They've launched Vani with Meesho, right?
Yeah.
And they've launched something with Swiggy as well. So Swiggy partnered with Sarvam to launch 11 language voice ordering across food delivery, grocery, Instamart, and dining out. So all of that is happening, it's so interesting, so heartwarming to hear all of that, right? We used to hear that so many things are happening in the US, so many things are happening in China. Now you get to see that, the real impact is happening in India as well. I mean, somehow US models, some Chinese models would support a little bit of Hindi, a little bit of other languages, but now we have a language model that caters to our local, dialects and everything. So that's, it's really good to hear all of that. And that's where, we are kind of very I mean, alongside Sarvam, there are so many other newses, right? For example, Deccan AI raised 25 million for enterprise AI evaluation and automation tool, right?
Yeah.
Neo Sapien has come out with already. So we saw it on Amazon that device is already there, which you can wear as a pendant, and it will record all the conversations and it will come back. So all of that is happening inside of India. We were not aware. We would not be able to keep track of that. In the last pod, we talked about the hacker house, right, where kids from age of 14 to 2021 are staying together to come out with latest innovations and things like that. So much is happening in India. Although we could have had a focused pod around India itself, but it's good that at least we are now getting the news, right? And I would like to announce one more thing. So finally, Akshan has had some time. We had some time. So now we are going to add the email subscription to IndiaAIPulse. So every couple of days or every 3 days, you could get news from IndiaAIPulse in your inboxes. So it will not only have India AI news, we'll have a section for international news as well. So if something critical happens that you need to be in the know of, you could subscribe there and we'll send across that email pretty much every second or third day. If the frequency of news becomes faster, we could probably even go to every day, right? Yeah. But for now, we're planning of every 3 days or 2 days, right? That kind of thing. So just subscribe to that newsletter and we'll deliver the best news from India AI to your inboxes. And that will keep you in the know. That way you'll know what's happening. That way you'll be able to decide and use the Indian AI stuff for your things. Anything else you want to cover on this one?
No, I think we've covered almost everything.
Yeah, I think this has been a long one. I mean, it's just been a week and there's so much to cover here. So, I mean, we were thinking that if we do it so frequently, we'll not have sufficient material. But now there's so much material to cover. And AI is kind of, growing exponentially, and the news across, I mean, when we were kind of shortlisting the news for this pod, there is so much that we've kept on the side that we did not even discuss, right? We didn't talk in depth about Nvidia. We didn't talk about Tesla or XAI or, SpaceX at all, right? So there is so much more happening, but we are just trying to focus on the tech stuff that matters more to the devs, right? Otherwise, I mean, we'll have to do pod almost second or third day. So yeah. Hope you guys are enjoying. I mean, we enjoy doing it. That at least gets us to know more about what's happening. If there's something that you guys would like us to cover more, just let us know in the comments, and we'll try and cover that and make it from that perspective. But for now, we will try to keep it every week. I mean, we promise every time. This is the first time we have kept our promise, but we will hope to do it frequently. Yep.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much for